Good morning, Dan and Amy. So, in the end, the FBI didn't need Apple's help to extract information from that San Bernardino terrorist's iPhone. But the question is, did the FBI's legal action against Apple represent a clarion call to hackers living in their mom's basements the world over to focus in on Apple? There's an interesting Daily Beast story where Jim Comey, the FBI director, said lots of folks have come to us with potential ideas in terms of trying to hack into the Apple system. And there was a story that suggested that it may have been a company called Celebrate, an Israeli company, that came to the FBI's rescue.
Yeah, that's what NBC reported last night, that they are the ones, that company.
The FBI also has not said whether it would disclose its newfound technique to Apple, which, of course, has a vested interest in protecting the security and privacy of its customers. And that Celebrate company, that Israeli company, has a contract with the FBI worth more than $15 million that it signed last week.
Oh, wow.
So does that...
So everything's political, yeah.
Well, and does it concern people if the American government uses foreign hackers, even allies, even of an allied country like Israel? Does it concern people if the American government uses foreign hackers to crack the signature product of America's top tech company? Well, let's talk to Bill Gavin. He's a former FBI assistant director about this matter and the tension between the tech companies and law enforcement, the tension between security and freedom in the era of terror. Bill Gavin, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Steve.
So in terms of the resolution of this seems to me like it's a temporary resolution because cases like this are going to present themselves. There are other cases where lawyers have tried to get a judge to order Apple to unlock phones for prosecutors in drug cases and the like. So it seems to me, even though the FBI relented here, we're going to be back at some point to prompt a decision whether the federal government and law enforcement can force Apple to do things that it doesn't want to do. How do you see this playing out and the impact on law enforcement and that tension between security and freedom?
Well, I think that the problem is it really didn't have to get to this point. This thing could have been resolved with a strong country leader in this country who got both parties into the White House, sat them down and said, resolve this now. That would have taken care of most of this problem. However, it got onto the public forum. I fully understand what Apple's concerns are. I also understand what the FBI's concerns are in terms of safety and security for the American public.
Yeah.
They don't have to be at odds with each other. They should be able to work with each other. But in this particular case, it was tough. They couldn't work it out. Bottom line is, we don't know, and probably won't know for quite some time, what is going to come from opening that phone and seeing what's on it. I think that Apple will be somewhat embarrassed or maybe have a little bit of a black eye if there's something on there that's a very, very severe interest to the United States government that's going to happen or that could have been prevented from happening if it's on that phone. That will be another time for discussion and debate on that. But in your statement, talking about having somebody else help you, an ally help you, or a foreign government help you, I can assure you that foreign governments, particularly the Chinese, are really knocking on the door for Apple too. And I think what we have to understand is when you bring an Apple product as it is into China, they don't write the same contract for China that they write for the United States. The United States contract is much more restrictive than they do for China because China's a state agency and is not going to put up with not being able to do things that they want to do. So that needs to unfold somewhere along the line so that there's a balance between all of these competing interests.
So I've been on the FBI's side this entire time, but now it's so funny because Apple wants the hijacking information from the FBI, and I would tell them to go pound sand. What would you say to them?
I'm writing back to you on that one. Listen, it's your equipment. You know how to do it. You refuse to do it. Now it can be done. But I do share your concern that there are hundreds of cases in the queue waiting to use a technique that can bypass Apple's security system. Apple could have fixed this problem and maintained their brand in terms of security had they worked with the Bureau and worked with the United States government. Bottom line is, since they didn't, now Apple's brand is a little bit tainted because you can go around the security system. They've got to think about what they just did.
Well, but just a point of order there was cooperation from Apple with the FBI to an extent. It just stopped at the idea of them having to create a piece of software to hack into this phone in question.
Well, yeah, they were willing to discuss it, but they weren't willing to resolve the problem the way it could have been resolved. So, we can talk about all of this, but I really think that their brand in terms of security of what their security for their phones is a little bit tainted now because we can't get into it.
What about
somebody else can get into it, and they got to think about that.
What about security more general? In his pre-Easter radio address on Saturday, President Obama doubled down on his commitment to bring in the 100,000 Syrian refugees that he said he would bring in. And I have not heard any updated comments from FBI Director James Comey about the FBI's ability to vet those individuals that could potentially be coming from Syria. What's your assessment of the president's commitment and keeping that commitment, even if James Comey said, we can't properly vet people, we don't have paperwork, we don't know who they are?
It borders on being irresponsible. There is no way you can vet those people coming in. And while there are absolutely legitimate cases and causes for people to migrate from Syria, they're mixed in, interspersed with those young adult males who are here only to do mischief and to do evil things. No doubt about that. And there is no way to vet them. They're sitting on top of passports that were generated by ISIS itself when they seized the government buildings. There's a very loose commitment to following international law when they come through Turkey as well. So it's a very difficult set of circumstances. Letting 100,000 immigrants from Syria into the United States is just plain dangerous. Ought not to be done.
Yeah, I wanted to move on to the Egypt Air flight that was a hoax bomb, but he was still able to storm the cockpit. And do you think you're going to have copycat crimes here then in the United States because of what that crazed man did?
There's always that possibility. There's other crazy people do crazy things. And yesterday morning when I was talking about that, you look at it and this guy is, wouldn't be surprised to find a room in his house covered in tinfoil, one of those kinds of things. But that doesn't obviate the problem. He said he had an explosive belt or a vest or whatever he might have had. He didn't have anything like that. But bottom line is, when you say it, everybody has to take it seriously. You do have to take it seriously. Is there somebody else going to try to do the same thing? I wish I could say no way, but it's not true. Somebody else will do it someplace else in the world, or hopefully not within our borders.
We're talking to former FBI Assistant Director Bill Gavin, and Bill is somebody who is on the inside of that agency. One of the other big FBI investigations ongoing is that into Hillary Clinton. Reports this week that senior aides are in the process of having interviews scheduled to sit down with the FBI. Ultimately, Charles Grassley, senior senator from Iowa, suggested that Hillary Clinton will be interviewed by the FBI. 150 agents devoted to this case, it's been reported. What is your assessment, prediction about how this case ends?
That's up in the air. I don't know how long. I know, I surmise what the problem is and how it could conceivably end. It needs to resolve itself prior to the vote of the American public to attempt to put her in the White House and then find out that she's going to be indicted. That would be tragic. And it would be unjustified and unfair to everybody involved. Bottom line is, I don't know how they'll resolve it. Will they resolve it in favor of putting the horse collar around Uma's neck and doing some of those things that could probably be done? Will they resolve it in favor of reducing something to a misdemeanor? I don't know. But the bottom line is, just one of those violations is, look what Petraeus happened. I mean, he gave information to the woman that was never used you don't know whether or not she was hacked and the information was used from her private service. All that will unfold, and there's still Jim Comey will cross every T and dot every single I before we jump out of it. It's going to be a difficult thing for the Department of Justice, though.
If this was an anonymous person who just worked at the State Department, who had done the things that we know Hillary Clinton did, is there any doubt in your mind that that person would be under prosecution at present?
I think it would be all over. The prosecution would be done, the conviction would be it, and the sentence would be levied.
All right, Bill Gavin, former FBI Assistant Director. Bill, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate your time.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.